Hello, welcome back to my wedding dressmaking series. I have plenty of work to do today. I'm not sure if my brain has arrived for work, but we must persist because there is not a great deal of time remaining. If you're keeping up to date, I did just finish my corselet structure in the last video, and I've got that on right now. And the next step that I'm working on is fitting a bodice on top of that corselet. I did consider just draping fabric on top of the corselet like a recent Bernadette Banner video where she demonstrated that technique, and it looked beautiful. However, I don't really love the neckline of my corselet. I'm not sure if you can see, but it has these little ridges here, and that's just not really what I wanted. So I drafted up a few toiles and I've ended up on this neckline here, and my concept is one layer of cotton on top of the corselet and then a drape on top of that cotton, possibly, potentially, hopefully bind the top edge with literal binding and sort of whip stitch that to the corselet, and then maybe at the bottom edge a small piping and then the skirt. Yeah, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the corselet and the bodice don't have to be super duper attached. Like, I've seen some corselets that seem like they're really finely attached to the bodice, just with a few stitches here and there. Correct me if I'm wrong. But I'm literally right now just wearing my bodice toile on top of my corselet, completely unattached, and it feels so secure, so fitting and nice. So yeah. I haven't filmed for the last few days, but I have been working. I realized that I was procrastinating working on my wedding dress because I had to be filming it, and I haven't been in the mood to film for the last few days. So I think, oh, I'll just wait until I'm ready to film so that you guys don't miss out on anything. But I had this realization that if I'm always waiting until I'm ready to film, I may not get my dress done. So I've been working on this toile and just trying to get the fit right off camera. I put style lines with tape on my dress form, and I draped my fabric on, then I sewed it up into a toile. I had the seam lines on the outside of the bodice, and that way I can pinch in at the seams wherever it needed to be more fitted, and I made all of those adjustments, and now I have this bodice. Let me show it to you. This is the fit of the bodice on top. It's so simple. It's a panel at the front, a panel at the side, and two panels at the back, I believe, joined with a zip. This zip is just for toile purposes. I'll get a nice zip, don't worry. I still need to decide on what I want the waistline to be. I've been playing around with, should it go like curved, like this, higher up here and then lower here, or should it be inverted, lower down here, higher up here? I think whatever it is, I want it to be lower and sort of have some movement, not just straight across. I am aware that there is some puckering going on with the fit of this bodice, but I'm deciding to not be too concerned by it because I want to do a fun and sort of interesting drape on top. So in my head, that will cover some ill-fitting puckering, and as long as it fits and it's comfortable and it looks fine from the outside, it should be fine. So yeah, getting the bodice done will be awesome because then I can attach my skirt and then the petticoat will be easy. The bodice is really my next thing to conquer. Also guys, I cannot stress to you how jelly my brain is right now. I really do want to bring you guys along for the journey, but please excuse if I don't talk to camera or something. Right now, I got nothing. Hey, before I start sewing, let me introduce the sponsor of today's video, which is BetterHelp. BetterHelp is the paid partner of this video. I have been feeling very overwhelmed recently with lots of big changes, life events happening, and of course making my own wedding dress. It feels like there are a lot of expectations when you're planning a wedding to be a certain way and do certain things, and I have to say I've been feeling quite a lot of anxiety about that. And this is so silly, but I've also been feeling the pressure that I'm meant to be feeling positive and happy and joyful emotions in this time, and that I'm not supposed to be overwhelmed or mildly scared or anxious. A lot of complicated feelings. I'm working on it though. I've been going to therapy proudly for many years of my life, and I found it to be a very valuable tool in helping me navigate difficult situations and big feelings. I've found that going to therapy has been really helpful in giving me the tools to reduce my anxiety and manage stress better, and it's helped me improve my ability to break down my feelings and experiences into more specific and addressable concerns. Now I know going to therapy can be an intimidating step, and sometimes it takes so long to get in to see a therapist, but BetterHelp makes it easier to get started. It's fully online, making therapy comfortable and convenient. You'll fill out a questionnaire and you'll be matched with a therapist in as little as a couple of days, and if it's not the right fit, you can switch therapists at no extra cost. With a diverse network of qualified professionals covering a wide range of specialities and backgrounds, BetterHelp is dedicated to matching you to the right therapist and helping you see progress with your mental health. Start fresh any any day of the year with BetterHelp. You can click the link in the description box of this video or go to betterhelp.com/carlyb for 10% off your first month of therapy. Thank you so much to BetterHelp for being the paid partner of this video. Deciding on what I wanted the bottom of the bodice to look like was so difficult. I have looked at many gowns and I've fallen in love with so many that it's been difficult to make a decision on just one design, but I ended up going with this second design that I drew out, which was the higher at the front and lower at the sides. If you're interested, some of my inspiration points were 1950s glamour gowns found in classic films like Audrey Hepburn films, but also more recently in the bridal collections of Vivienne Westwood, Danielle Frankel, Shop Sync, Honor NYC, and Flora Studio. A lot of these designers have this beautiful movement in the bodices and some asymmetry and just a lot of play mixed with a classic style. I'm in love. Anyway, I was trying to emulate something like this with my own design. I decided to make my bodice out of a cotton as the bottom, and that would serve as an interlining, and then I used an ivory sort of chiffon as a top layer, and I basted them together with my machine. Nah, machine basting, it just ain't it. I've seen other YouTubers use it for their projects. Probably works for most people, but I always feel like I get stuck with some sort of weird puckering at the end, and I'm not about it. I'm gonna hand stitch this. Me choosing the longest possible way to make a garment. My ironing board is from Joseph. For those who are interested and asking, not sponsored, just upgraded recently and I love it. Joseph, I got the big maximum size ironing board. It's incredible. Me putting my needle down and immediately forgetting where I put it. I often will baste using a contrasting coloured thread so that it's really easy to identify and remove, but for this garment I've started using matching thread because if it gets stuck in the seams or the seam allowance, you might not necessarily have to remove it. It might not be actually visible from the outside of the garment, but if you've used a black or a red or a vibrant colour, it can actually peek through to the right side of the fabric through the white. You know what I mean? So I'm using a white thread, so if I want to leave it in, it shouldn't be visible. I'm basting together my two pieces, and this is going to create what you could call interlining. Basically, this means I've got an outside layer and an inside layer, and they function as one layer. So it's not a lined piece, but the really nice part about having the two layers means that I can sew on the inside of the garment and you won't see those stitches from the outside. Oh, don't mind me getting distracted by my Apple TV shows. I've got a lot of good shows going right now, guys. Anyway, once I basted all of my pieces together, I could then machine stitch the bodice together piece by piece at a 1/2 inch seam allowance. This is nice and easy sewing and it was done really quickly. And then I pressed my seam allowances out and I decided that I would just lift the bottom portion of the back of the bodice because I wasn't quite happy with the shape. Okay, here's the rough shape. I don't know why, but I feel like one side here has a little bit of gaping and the other one is fine. So that's really weird, but whatever. I'm hoping that everything works because I think I'm going to drape my fabric on this, sew it all on, and then put the zipper in as a last step. So if there's a problem, I don't know what I'll do. But let's just fingers cross it because it's kind of looking fine-ish now. It's looking good. I'm very tentative to say things look good, but it looks good. I'm really glad I did a double layer here because I think that this top layer of a more ivory fabric softens that white cotton and hopefully isn't going to look too harsh against my rather cream overlay. You guys are not going to like my next step, but I need more of my overlay fabric, so I think I'm going to chop a portion off the bottom of my skirt. I'm really scared about it too, but I know that I want it to be T-length and right now it is floor length, so I've got like 10 centimeters to play with. It is very scary, but it must be done. Because I think I want the fabric to come up from the skirt onto the top, I think. Hiya crew, it's the next day. I had a good night's sleep, so I've got more energy to tackle this project. I had a little bit of gaping in my bodice and I realized that that is because I sewed one bodice piece correctly and one bodice piece was upside down, which just meant that I had extra fabric at the top. Rookie error, but basically I just recut the whole bodice, basted the pieces all together again, and I'm going to reconstruct it. I could have done some seam ripping and stuff, but I actually just did not want to, so it was easier for me to just do it again. However, with my little toile bodice, I experimented with 2 different fabrications as my draping or my pleating or whatever you want to call it. One idea is incorporating the skirt fabric onto the bodice. And I like this for continuity's sake, but I dislike it because the fabric isn't super easy to work with and it doesn't have the nicest drape. My second option, which I prefer, I think, is the use of this lovely ivory silk. It has more of an organic feel. It kind of has this liquid movement, some flounce, some energy. I just really like the way that it moves, and I think that it holds this sort of crumpled pleating much better than the other fabric. So I think I'm gonna commit to this, and my plan basically is just to hand drape it all over the bodice and stitch it in pivotal areas. I think I'll be incorporating some sequins up onto the bodice, so the sequins will help the draping to stay in the right place. But because it's kind of this loosey-goosey, flouncy drape, I don't want it to be particularly sewed down, even by hand, even by small tacks. I just want it to be in absolutely integral places so that I can preserve the fun, organic flounciness of it. Do you know what I mean? I've been procrastinating so much just because there's some things that I don't know how to do. And when I don't know how to do something, it's really hard to start doing it. But the only way that I'm going to actually learn how to do it is by doing it. The cycle repeats. Okay, also for those of you who are concerned, I am adding small tabs of cotton tape over the edges of my boning channels. I'm just hand stitching them to my corselet just so that there's extra security. I added a nice satin ribbon along the bottom edge and the top edge, but I realized that that satin ribbon, because it wasn't cut on bias, meant that there was no longer any stretch in the top of the corselet, and then it was sort of cutting in and digging in, so I took it off so that I could maintain the stretch, which it seems is integral for achieving my perfect fit. So yeah, I'm just going to do these little cotton tabs just to have extra security. Not necessarily necessary, but y'all know me, I like to go above and beyond for no particular reason other than my conscience tells me to do it. So yeah, let's sew. I need a little help here. Daddy's in denial. Much better. Time to drape. I just have to change my shirt because there's no way I'm taking my t-shirt on and off 100 times today so that I can keep trying on things. Button downs only. Alright, bodice is bodicing. I have this nice long length of what I think is probably silk. I have no idea what it is. I got it at the secondhand store, but basically it's incredibly lightweight and it naturally wants to sit in a crinkled formation. The crinkle looks, in my opinion, really lovely and romantic and expensive, but luckily I can iron it and it holds the shape really nicely. You can iron it completely flat and you can sort of drape it and press it and get a new shape. So I plan on using this whole length to get me across my bodice and then just pressing the fabric, shaping it how I like. Let's see if this works. It took me a little bit of playing to find the right technique to shape this fabric, but after a while it started making sense to me and I kind of love this technique. It's kind of organic and a little bit all over the place, but it feels fun, and just don't burn your fingers if you do this, okay? Be careful. I did actually end up doing some of my draping on the dress form, only because I was slightly concerned that I wouldn't be able to kind of get the drape around the bust, but I'm not enjoying it so much. So I think I'm just going to baste all of my work in place and take it back off the dress form and just cross my fingers. It's just a little easier to work with the iron when it's flat or flat-ish. I am feeling very professional, however, doing all of my draping on the dress form, just like all the videos that I've seen, and stitching my work on. It's like, wow. Wow, yeah, very technical. Okay, I'm like 2/3 of the way through draping this bodice and I think I've found my favorite technique for working with the silk. I tried initially just doing some basting stitches, a few horizontally down the length of the silk and gathering it up and then using that to try and form the fabric and then pressing it. I didn't really love that technique. Then for the first hour or so, I was trying to sort of like pleat in very small vertical sections and then work horizontally across the bodice. But I think my favorite technique, which I discovered by using my dress form, is to do all of the gathering and pleating at the top of the bodice and then slowly apply tension to the silk and use that tension to sort of continue those gathers all the way down and press. So sort of working from the top down. I'll try and show you. I've been using this little guy to create some curvature over the bust points just so that it's not completely flat, and I've just been doing these tiny little rough gathers by hand, giving it a press and then roughly pinning it and just continuing that. Bunch of tiny, tiny little gathers, a little steam, a little pin. Now that I have some gathering, I'm going to baste it in place by hand. So once that's basted, I can kind of just bring some tension down and try and get the pleats in a way that I like. And then I just press in very small sections. And I just keep fiddling with the fabric until it sort of lays in a way that I enjoy. And here is my result of a day's work of draping and pinning. It's kind of pretty. Well, I finished doing all of my draping. It took a little while. I just need to do a basting stitch all the way around the edges. Actually, it's not going to be a basting stitch. It's probably going to be quite a secure hand stitch. It's coming together. I really hope this all fits well once I put a zipper in, because it's going to be kind of hard to adjust now that I've done all of this work. I think it fits good at the bust, so if anything is wrong, it might be too much or too little at the back, and I have a few ways that I think I can sort that out if I have to. The other thing that I'm worried that I might need to do is add some boning to the bodice. I'm hoping that my corselet is enough for this to sit on top of, but because I interlined this bodice, I thought I can always hand stitch some cotton tape to the interlining and then add the boning then. Obviously that's not the most time efficient way of doing that, but it's possible to do if I need it. So yeah, hopefully this is good. I think I'm just gonna go run to Spotlight, grab an invisible zip so that I can finish this later tonight if I have the energy and time. And I might get some piping too, because I thought it would be really sweet to have a little ivory satin piping going right in between the bodice and the waist, potentially. I just got back from Spotlight. I got my zip, I got some cotton to hopefully line the skirt with. I got some more tulle. I'm not exactly sure what sort of petticoat situation I'm after and how much tulle I'm gonna need for it, but in my head, I'm just gonna use what I've got and then reassess. And if I need more, I need more. Oh, right now I'm just securing the top and the bottom of my draping to the bodice using a small hand stitch. It should be hidden once I do all of my sewing, but yeah. I just wanted to make sure that everything was nice and secure before I trim off the excess fabric, which is my next step, I think. Also, I'm doing my own makeup for the wedding, guys, mainly because I like doing my own makeup and I like looking like myself, I think. But my girl maths is really not girl mathing, because I went to the store and I was like, oh wow, if I'm doing my own makeup, then that means I can buy new makeup for this, so I can get something really fancy. And then I was just looking at all of these products that are gonna cost me like 3 times the amount it would be just if I got my makeup done regularly. So funny. But I'm like, I'm not paying for professional makeup, so surely I get new makeup budget. My guilty pleasure is blush. It's basically my favorite makeup product ever. If I wear anything on a day-to-day basis, it's just gonna be blush, because I like looking like I have a little sunburn right on my cheeks and my nose. And that's the whole story. I will let you know if I buy myself a new sparkly blush, even though I don't really need it. But it could be fun. Anyway, let me finish this bodice, then I will meet you back here. Well, that was incredibly nerve-wracking. Basically worked on that all day. Oh my goodness. That's the vibe. That's a better look at the fit. I'm feeling like immensely proud. It's nice. It's really nice. Obviously I'm just holding it together at the back, but like the fit is kind of lovely. It's really comfortable. Yeah, I'm really excited. I'm really relieved. I'm really happy. I'm actually very charmed by this little ruffle at the top, which I didn't intend for it to be a feature, but perhaps it's cute. I will just sort of see if I want to keep that or not. I thought that I would just tuck that under and have a clean finish. I can decide that in a little bit, so yeah, exciting. Well, I actually do love this little frill at the top. I think it's so endearing. The only problem is that I have this raw edge here and I've basically just basted it together. So I'm thinking I might very, very carefully unpick this basting, tuck this over once, and then re-stitch the ruffle down. And then here, what I can do is do a tiny, tiny little ribbon to cover this raw edge and stitch it to the interlining. A bit precarious, but I think that's what I might do. What's actually insane is that I think I can now attach my skirt to the bodice, which feels crazy. My mum said this will come together fast once you sort of get this bodice done, and I think she might be right. A problem with this skirt is that the zipper was initially in the side seam, so I'm going to sew up the side seam and unpick the center back seam because we're doing a center back zip. I'll do that now. You that I'll be missing. Aside from sewing sequins on the skirt by hand, I haven't done anything to the skirt except for hold it up to my body every day and hope that it works. So surreal. For those of you who are just tuning in now, most of the fabric that I used for this wedding dress is secondhand, including this whole skirt. I thrifted it and it was just a vintage wedding dress and I'm just using the skirt portion of it. I can't tell you exactly what the skirt is, but I speculate that it might be like 1 3/4 circle skirt or something like that. I definitely think this bottom hem is somewhat circular. Okay, I'll just secure the bottom edge of this here so it doesn't unravel anymore. But that's a nice long opening, plenty of room to attach a zipper at a later time. This is genuinely surreal. I'm gonna stitch my gathering stitches into the skirt. Do I what? Do you love me? Do I love him? Sewing them together. What in the world? What a weird time. Oh my gosh, guys, I just sewed the skirt on and I spent the last 10 minutes just frolicking around the house and just looking at it from every angle, and I love it. I'm so happy, I'm so relieved. It's a wild, wild thing that I've spent so many weeks working on the construction, the undergarment, the fit, and then basically in a day of work, I've sort of made the whole dress. Visually from the outside, what you see is like a day of work, which is wild. I know you guys can't see the whole dress, but I have to say, I'm actually loving the hem length. Initially, I did want it to be sort of ankle length or T-length at the front and then go into a train, but I'm kind of loving it completely floor length. I just walked around the house and I noticed that I wasn't tripping over the skirt, and the reason is because the skirt comes up at the front, this portion where my feet are is actually right at the perfect level, and then everywhere else around the dress is sort of this lovely like cascading, just touching the floor sort of vibe. It's delightful. Okay, so final thoughts, or I guess my plan for the future is I need to do quite a bit of work on this bodice. I'm going to find a way to finish the inside edge at the top. It's probably going to mean redoing a bit of the work that I just did. I also critically have to hand tack all of these pleats down, because even here you can see where I haven't pinned them and they're just loose. It creates a lot more loose volume and it doesn't really show off the fit of the bodice that I labored over for many, many weeks. So everything needs to get meticulously tacked down. I think the sequin work will help me achieve that, but I might just need to do some regular tacking as well, some invisible work. Do you know what I mean? I'll need to do lining, some sort of petticoat. I don't want to add too much more volume, I just want there to be more layers of tulle so that I can add more depth to the underskirt colour and a little bit more volume. Not much, just a little. I need to add the zip, probably another hook and eye, and very importantly, I would like to tack my bodice to the corselet As you can see, when they're separate, I'm getting some funny, you know, slip problems where you're getting some little sights of the corselet from underneath. So I really do need to tack these together and just ensure that everything lays absolutely perfectly. I cannot believe how comfortable this corselet is. The cotton bobinette is delightful. I thought it wouldn't be strong enough, and I thought that maybe it would stretch out every time that I wear it. I get nervous that that's what's going to happen. But when I'm wearing it, it just feels really nice, supportive, comfortable, lovely. After doing all of those little tasks, I have the most fun job of all, which is adding many sequins to this dress. I've added so many to the skirt, but it needs a lot more, and the bodice will get many too, so that's very exciting. And then finally, I get to make my veil situation, and I'm not exactly sure what it's going to look like, but I think I want it to be patchwork. I think I want it to be very long, much longer than my dress, and I have 3 options. Option 1 is a veil that sort of drapes over the head and maybe is clipped in with some white flower clips and then goes down like a regular veil. Option 2, that's like a vintage style. Option 2 would be a cape that sort of comes across the shoulders and maybe has some big puff sleeves with some boning in them so they sort of like float around my arms. That's really fun, but maybe hides a bit of my work. Option 3 is a cape that comes from the back of the bodice. So it attaches right at the top part of the bodice and then drapes down, sort of like an Audrey Hepburn vibe. I think that's my favorite. It's my mum's favorite. Let me know what your favorite option is. I'm excited about that part because it seems fun. Anyway, it's going to be really patchworked, and I want all of the seams that I patchwork to have sequins on them. So it will be like a sequin grid. I can't wait for that. But anyway, I'm going to stop talking. Thank you for hanging out with me. Thank you for helping me along with this really big process. What a joyful end of the day now that this dress is sort of coming together. Thanks for being so kind with my low energy vibes in this video. I apologize, but hey, we're getting through it, the highs and the lows. We're gonna make it to the end. So yeah, feel free to like the video if you liked it, or subscribe if you want more videos like this. And yeah, that's it for this lot of work. You're the best. Tell me how your projects are going, by the way. You know I love to hear about it. I'll see you guys in the next video. Lots of love. Bye.